his way of negotiating and saying, I'm going to cripple the economy if I don't get what I want for my people and myself, it worked in a way too. And timing, like you had pointed out. He brings on this like mafioso style, like very brash guy.
That word means gangster, right?
Who's the real gangster? I don't know if you want to call it the mobster woman of the year of the country, Nancy Pelosi. There's a fashion crisis going on right now in the playoffs for baseball. They just added a new advertisement. They're putting ads on helmets now, and people are having a big issue with it, especially sports columnists. Welcome back to the Full Count Podcast. Today's coverage will be current events on how that's been affecting the real estate market. And of course, we got to talk a little bit about baseball. Okay, we've seen so much going on the news right now about the port strike, the elections, baseball now. We're seeing how competitive it's getting, and a lot of stuff going on. So the port strike incident is a real big deal right now because we got the elections going on. If the economy takes more of a turn, it's going to obviously affect the president election, specifically for Kamala, probably, right? And this port strike situation is finally, taken care of. But over the last 3 days, they've been on a strike from Texas all the way to Maine. And if they would have continued the strike, it would have caused $1.2 billion in inflation per day. And it essentially affects mortgage rates, which I want to get into in a moment. But first off, I was reading into the Wall Street Journal, Chris, and I found something pretty mind-blowing in a way, I guess you could say. I didn't think they would put it right in writing, but I guess maybe it's public information. But in the Wall Street Journal, it said the White House privately and publicly pressed the large shipping lines and cargo terminal operators who employed the longshore workers and essentially told them to get the deal done, because the last time it was done was in 50 years. With that said, do you think that's something like very common, I guess, to do when you have the elections around the corner? Or what are your thoughts on that, with the president doing that?
To me, it only makes sense with the historical nature of the Democratic Party and their relationship with the unions. That when you have the incumbent in office who's also a Democrat, we have what a lot of folks say is a tight election coming up,
Right.
that there would be pressure. I do think it's interesting that you pointed out that the pressure was headed not towards the union, because that is where that tie is. But just last night, before we heard the news of a secured deal, even though the news started to really kind of get resolved yesterday, I had my product developer was concerned about the lead times on some new products that we're launching because of the port strike. And I mentioned to her, hey, look, we shouldn't really worry about it because of that fact, because there's a Democrat incumbent in office right now, and this is a union issue. So there's going to be something worked out, because they don't want this to be a reason that they are not elected, which obviously the union supports one party historically more favorable than the other.
Right. Wow. Now, when you mentioned that to your coworker, though, I mean, I guess it's in the realm of your industry. Obviously, this is a workplace conversation, but did that coworker have a specific answer to you? Not answer, response, that, because it is in the verge of the political discussion, but at the same time, it spills over to real life, like at your job, essentially, right?
Yeah, there was an agreement. It wasn't she didn't protest that. It was more of a reassurance than anything. It makes sense. It makes sense on paper.
Right.
Why this wouldn't become this issue. Ultimately, unions do want Democrats to be elected. Ultimately, unions do have their own interests, but
Right.
it's not like their life's going to get easier if the GOP is elected. So, in a sense, kind of a great timing by the International Longshoremen Association to do this for that reason.
So a lot of this anger is not just the money aspect, but with these port strikers, the longshoremen, but at the same time, they don't want to get replaced by robots, essentially. And I think I was reading something about 50 to 30% of them are going to get eventually cut out. And I think this was their last way of kind of, putting force behind their words that they don't want to get cut out. But, technology, you kind of have to adapt. I feel for them. It's really affecting everyone at this point, every industry to that matter, with AI. But at the same time, at least this this longshoreman CEO of this ILA, Harold Daggett, he brings on this like mafioso style, like very brash guy, a little bit pretentious. And I don't know how I feel about him because I think you know a little bit more than me when it comes to unions. I don't know if I feel good about them or bad about them. I think they are helpful, but at the same time, I think they could be a detriment. So with that said, his way of negotiating and saying, I'm going to cripple the economy if I don't get what I want for my people and myself, it worked in a way too. And timing, like you had pointed out.
Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the companies money to pay their salaries. Today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you.
But basically, what he ended up wanting initially was 77% increase in pay for all his people over the next 6 years. They ended up coming to a agreement at 62%. So they were at $39 an hour on average. Now they're going to be at $63 an hour for in the next 6 years. So I think he did an incredible job in a way, especially with the timing. Again, I don't know if I like him or not, but what do you think about his style of doing business in terms of negotiating?
I don't know necessarily. I mean, I did see that comment, and it was heavily that quote that you just used. It was obviously used by any media source who got their hands on it because it is a very spicy quote. Do I think that that's what got the deal done at the end of the day? I mean, maybe it added more headlines. Maybe it made the story bigger. So
I think that's what he wanted.
Yeah, I can see that being part of it, but nothing speaks louder than manufacturer or companies not being able to get their products into the country. Right. I think that speaks louder than a comment said. Where's the news of the port strike being told the most? It's being told the most in company meetings. Hey, we might not be able to ship out a product to our clients because of this port strike. That's where it's being talked about the most.
Like in your case at work, yeah.
Yeah, so the same exact scenario. That's where it's happening. So do I think that comment itself? I'm not really sure. I think the concern that I always have is, you hear a lot of discussion about this concept called crony capitalism. And it's basically when you get the government involved, passing litigation, and you basically have the government on your side. Yeah. And you're able to take over an industry, a sector of an industry, and that's basically called corruption in other language. Well, I also feel that the opposite of that is more of like a crony unionism, right? Where businesses aren't able to thrive because of unions and laws passed in support of them. And California is a good example of this. Where there's a lot of union influenced legislation. New York is a great example of this. And that hurts someone wanting to start a business, right? So where do I think most people listening to this will feel the effects of these sort of deals? We all know that where this really ends up affecting wallets is going to be the same place all this stuff affects wallets, in my opinion, which is at the grocery store, right. Buying products. Like this is going to contribute to part of the inflation. And you can make the argument, well, maybe this money should just come out of the businesses' pockets. But if you're being a realist, what do we know? Where does it actually end up affecting? Yeah, it's the reality is things are going to cost more. Right.
Totally. Not only that too, but just to tie it back to real estate. And by the way, Harold Daggett's house is freaking amazing. It's a palace. I know some people made a comment about how he shouldn't have such a nice, assets per se, cars and all that. I think even a yacht, but, to each their own, I guess. But I think a leader that's going to be leading such a big union does deserve compensation and does deserve to live very comfortably in a way if they're working really hard. But again, like I said, I don't know much about how unions work. I don't know how much work and effort he really is putting in. I imagine it's a lot to give them benefit of doubt. But again, I don't know much about unions. But just to tie it back to like the real estate economy and mortgage rates, when I heard about this strike happening and how it was going to affect inflation, that was just going to end up skyrocketing mortgage rates again, right? And that's a big issue. We've been seeing them coming down, and then this was going to pump them back up. But at the same time, there was a positive news to it because the Federal Reserve was probably going to cut rates again because they see that this, they want to get ahead of it and bring the Fed funds rate down to, stop this inflation situation going on with this. So in a way, it was kind of a positive thing as long as the Fed really cut rates even further and kind of beat the inflation, I guess you could say, for short term. But now that that's not happening, we also saw the jobs report was a lot stronger for September than we expected. And now the Federal Reserve is not going to cut in November like we all wanted because we recently had seen a cut in September. So I think mortgage rates are now going to probably stay where they're at or go a little bit higher, unfortunately. So this story for a moment kind of was helping rates, I think, for a second. Helping the economy, no. So in a way, I prefer that this happened and got taken care of.
Yeah, I would like to learn. I would like to learn more about them. I don't want to make the same mistake that people make when they talk about billionaires. It's really easy to picture the image of someone working on a dock in rainy weather and waiting for a shipping container to come in, and they can't pay all their bills. And also in the background, Harold Daggett's flying by on his yacht, smoking a cigar. It's really easy to entertain that idea.
And wearing his gold chains on TV and all that.
Wearing his gold chain, yep. And, wearing his ball cap. And you said the word mafioso earlier.
They're making billions, and they're spending it fast as they make it. I want a piece of that for my men.
But you said it more in a positive light, but what do you think that word actually means? That word means gangster, right? And we like to say like it's good to have my boss is gangster, like that. But
I meant it that way, sort of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think he's dressing the part of the other way,
Right. And exactly. So, but who's the real gangster? I don't know if you want to call it the mobster woman of the year of the country, when she's a Democrat and is there as a collective society, but she's all about it, but when the way she acts is more individualistic, which is fine, but she's utilizing the government information. What's that?
Mexico's new president.
Oh, that's another one. I'm talking about Nancy Pelosi though.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, talking about Nancy Pelosi, the Wolf of Wall Street is what they call her on a lot of forums, Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. If you want to, can you go into that a little bit of what exactly has been going on with that? Because this is like a continuous thing that she's kind of been, framed on, not framed on, but pointed out.
Yeah, for the past couple of years, people have been following Nancy Pelosi's husband's stock trades and noticed a lot of consistencies. The latest one is, of course, that her husband sold more than $500,000 worth of Visa stock just 2 weeks before a DOJ antitrust lawsuit. And it wouldn't be as bad, I guess, if every time there's some sort of bill that goes before Congress to prevent this sort of trading, family and friends, close family, Congress men and women, that she's voted against it. She's been against it. It's legal. Is it legal?
Real quick, I do have a question before you go over all that. I thought a lot of the times it was Nancy Pelosi doing the stock trades, but is it more so her husband then? Is that what it really is?
It's Paul Pelosi. It's Paul Pelosi, her husband.
Okay. Because they have a website, and I think they even have an index of some sort that the community.
You're talking about the Nancy Pelosi stock tracker?
Yeah, that people follow. Like, hey, you want to make real money? Follow what Nancy's doing, essentially. That's hilarious.
Right. And let me go down to this article. There's a quote. This is her spokesman. Speaker Pelosi does not own any stocks, and she has no prior knowledge or subsequent involvement in any transactions.
Mm-hmm.
So her claim is that she's not saying anything to her husband.
Right.
Her husband's not saying anything to her. And you're supposed to, as an American citizen, take the quote, hey, she doesn't own any stocks on its face value. You're supposed to accept that and move on.
Right.
But we all know that is was not good enough, to be frank about it, right?
Well, there's a pattern here. She keeps doing this, or her husband keeps doing it. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's definitely not a one-off.
Yeah.
Let's go check out this Twitter account and see what we got going on. The Nancy Pelosi stock tracker on X, and it covers various deals done by different members of legislators. It's expanded. It doesn't just cover Nancy Pelosi trades. So right now we're looking at various involvements. What is Chris Joseph? That's who runs this site.
Dude, he's got to be careful.
You do run the risk. The good news is that there's a lot of high visibility, and First Amendment's all over this. All he's doing is reporting information they had to publicly report. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. From if you have to worry about quote unquote real gangsters, you never know. It's interesting. You'll have folks saying, "Met my favorite stock trader," and he'll go ahead and repost it. And obviously, this gentleman's got Nancy Pelosi in the background. She thinks that he's there for all fun and games.
Yeah,
but he's there more for games.
Yeah.
This is Raytheon Corp.
Yeah.
And back in October 2023, we shared Mark Wayne Mullen made a suspicious $50K buy of Raytheon Technologies. And they give an analysis of it, right? I don't want to bore everybody with all this information, but they do research on it. I feel like it's pretty objective. They're really doing a good job of just reporting the facts here. So, anyways, it's worth something to check out. But it's kind of a shame that this sort of information, if used in the business sector, what would be the term we would call it?
Insider trading.
What's insider trading?
And you'd go to prison for a long time.
Ask Martha Stewart about it. And honestly, maybe Martha Stewart should just be the biggest advocate for this these sort of bills. Like, it should be Martha Stewart versus Nancy Pelosi. I'm sure she doesn't want any more smoke with the federal government.
No.
But that would be an amazing matchup if Martha Stewart all of a sudden became this huge advocate for awareness for this cause. And I think the only way you can really do it is immediate family. That's the only way you could really pass a law on this. Is like, your wife's in public office. Well, guess what? You're not allowed to trade on anything that they're privy to, or they have to, maybe it's already set up like they have to recuse themselves. I feel like that's not enough. There really cannot be, it needs to be more hard and fast laws where you have information, you can't pass it off to a family member, right, and then they can make trades on it.
And that would prevent people from staying in office forever, because obviously, unfortunately, I'm sure there's more than a handful of people in office that love benefiting from something remotely close to what we just said. And that's why they don't leave, because they have influence, but now they have money waiting for them. Right. But I find that interesting, that that account that you just shared with us. I thought they were going to try and not allow congresswomen and men to be able to even buy stock at some point. I thought I heard this a couple months ago, but maybe it didn't pass or it never went through. I imagine it wouldn't get even voted on. So,
well, no, I mean, there are people who vote on it, right? But there's more people who vote for or vote against those sort of laws being passed, clearly. Yeah. And look, here, the truth is that you would think that Americans would see this and just vote the other way, but we know it's not about that. These things are bigger than that. It's a tribal game. It's unfortunate, because I think that would be a disqualifying thing, in my opinion. But just me.
Well, now just to kind of go to the next topic, which includes business and includes baseball. There's
Hey, before we
fact-
get there, can I just talk about our last guest we had on?
Sure.
Pinstripe Derek, great. Definitely appreciate him coming on here. He's blowing up on the scene. So glad he came on.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that you're calling something a win when it was actually an L for you, because I don't think you actually listened to what he said. Okay. He said, at first he was very charitable. He did say,
can you, for the people that didn't see that episode, can you give a little summary of what exactly you're
I'm
referring
literally
to?
I'm literally giving a quote right now. If you
Okay, but some
stop
people may
cutting
have
out.
not seen it, so that's why.
Yeah, I'm telling you. All right, so I'll even go back to what I said. I've said for a long time on here that, me, Sway, we're like one team people when it comes to baseball. I'm a Padres fan. Sway's a Dodgers fan. Sway loves the game of baseball, so he can watch any two teams play, but we are hardcore with what we do, right? I'm Padres till I die. He's Dodgers till he dies.
But you
You
wear the
might catch me in
uniform.
the future wearing a Dodgers jersey, but that's just to piss off Sway.
Yeah.
It's not because I like him. Well, Andrew, historically, and Nick, they both have – Nick not so much, but Andrew definitely has two teams.
Yes.
On one hand, he's a New York Yankees fan. On the other, he's an Angels fan, right? And so I constantly bring this up and bash him repeatedly, publicly.
Which I don't mind. Derek agreed with me, I think.
I embarrassed the heck out of this guy on a public stage consistently.
Embarrassed.
Ruined his life over this. Anyways, so we had Pinstripe Derek on. And again, great guest. We're not worthy. Would love to have him back on. And he's a very diplomatic guy. This guy's going to the networks. I wouldn't be surprised if I see him on ESPN next week. But he was very diplomatic. And I had asked him, hey, can you trust people who like two baseball teams? And what he said was, look, I can't tell anyone how to be a fan. For example, I'm not really that big into football. So I kind of have two teams. And I think that's something that you forgot to recognize, is that he said he's not that big into football. So for you to call that a team that he likes, yeah. For you to call that a W, are you telling me you don't like baseball anymore?
No, the way you're framing it is totally
baseball.
off. This is so political. This is like a political debate. The way you framed it, and then you ask a question with that particular subject matter. You got to talk about everything. So
you came away thinking that was a W. He literally said he doesn't even care about football.
He specifically
so for you to consider that a win, you would have to not care about baseball.
He specifically said that it's totally okay to be a fan of whatever team you have, but also to support for community purposes. If there's another team in your city and you wear their merchandise, go to their games, that's when he says that he could see someone doing that. And that's what I do for the Angels, but I'm a diehard Yankee fan. But when it comes to the Angels, that's where I grew up. I saw my first World Series there where they actually won. And that's what I was referring to. And at the same time, he did say that he goes to the hockey games. He's a hockey fan of some other team. I don't remember where, but because of the one closest to him, he goes to those games.
Hey, I mean, nothing wrong. Like I said, nothing wrong with rooting for your city, right?
Right.
So I'm a New York Rangers fan for hockey, but I also really enjoy going to Carolina Hurricanes games because I live near their arena. Because it's just really cool to go to, with a sea of people who are all rooting for the same team, and the music is fun, and you get some hot dogs or some pretzels or whatever, and you just vibe out with the community. I mean, that's part of being a sports fan too.
There we go. So Derek put it to rest for us, Chris. Basically, if you're rooting for your city, you can have two teams, okay?
All I got from that is if you're a Yankees fan, you can have a lot of different teams. But
so with that said, I took the W, and I do want to agree with one. I do want to agree with one thing with you.
Let me respond to that. I'm
going to agree with one thing real quick. He is very diplomatic. This guy is actually very well. Of course, he's talented at what he does, but I didn't know he was also talented in being diplomatic. I think Derek could run for office, and I think a lot of people would vote for him because the way he was able to answer that was incredible. And I recommend everyone watching and listening to go check out that episode with Derek. pinstripe territory. I think that was flawless how he did it. And
I think,
Chris and I are just tearing each other apart here because we're not as talented.
I think the more you accurately talk about how diplomatic he is, which is a true statement, by the way, it hurts your case more. But
you started with that. I don't understand how that makes
sense.
No,
I'm saying because it's true. Like, he is very, very diplomatic. I'm saying it hurts your case. It doesn't hurt his case. He's good. It hurts your case because he would have to be diplomatic to respond in a way that wouldn't shatter your dreams, right?
No, I think he was being diplomatic because he didn't want to hurt your feelings on how dumb of a question that was.
No, he knew. He was like, oh, shit, this is something I go to bed every night and think about. Like, what are these people who have two teams? That's probably what was going through his mind. But anyways.
Well, let's see what the people think.
The argument you just made, though, prior to the statement I just made was, hey, you know what? If it's a hometown team, nothing wrong with repping the team. You know, you go to the games. Why wouldn't you? And look, I agree with that. But I guess my question for you would be, do you ever wear the jerseys of the Angels when you're not at the game? When you're just sitting around your house?
No, I don't wear jerseys or anything. I've always thought it was weird to wear jerseys.
Okay, shirts. Do you wear the merch when you're just sitting around the house?
No, when I go to the gym, yeah, because those shirts, I don't mind.
So we're not going to find podcast episodes of you wearing Angels merch when you could be wearing Yankees merch, right?
I've definitely wore Angels on the podcast too.
Yeah, we're not at a game, are we?
For the purpose of Full Count Podcast, it's a baseball, business, real estate podcast. I want to wear baseball. I think you having a problem with it is more of a hilarious situation than anything. So I think you're stuck on it. I don't know what it is. I think you don't have the confidence to be able to do two teams. I think that's the problem here. Because you even mentioned to Derek that you couldn't go to a Braves game.
What's next, Andrew? You're gonna have two podcasts?
No, listen.
You're gonna go to a restaurant and have two dinners?
You said on the podcast that you could not wear a Padres hat at a Braves game because you live in Atlanta now. You don't have the ability or the wherewithal to do that because your courage is gone to wear a Padres hat at the Braves game.
Now you're just lying because what I said was I've consistently said I would have no issue because it's not like there's a big rivalry. The Padres aren't like this team that's pissed everybody off over the years. We've always been this like underdog story. Because once we win in the MLB, especially if it's uncovered that we cheated at the World Series, people are going to start to hate us, right? Nobody hated the Astros ever.
Okay, but now you're going on a tangent that is totally off topic.
No, because what I'm saying is not like you're not going to ever see me saying that I was afraid to wear a Padres hat.
Of course, you didn't say you weren't. Yes, I am.
I'm
making my point. I didn't say you said that, but basically you said you wouldn't do it, and you left it at that. And then you changed the subject, which you're very good at doing.
Never said that.
Very sneaky, Chris.
Never said that.
Well, people got to go watch the video. In any case,
so what just happened needs to happen more often on this podcast.
What
that
debating?
Was good. That was quality. This is what we need more of.
I know someone watched us when we were I don't know what we were doing. We were debating or arguing about something, and someone commented, and we got comments on it. So unfortunately, people love seeing arguments, which is hilarious because baseball or sports is there to bring people together. And in this case, it makes us apart. But I think it's great because it makes good entertainment.
Yeah.
So let's move on real quick to baseball and business. There's a fashion crisis going on right now in the playoffs for baseball. They just added a new advertisement. They're putting ads on helmets now. And people are having a big issue with it, especially sports columnists. What is your take on that? Because, they've had the patch on their arm, the swoosh sign for the Nike, which has been recent because Nike's been doing their production. But people are having a real big issue with all these ads messing up the style, essentially. Let me see who the columnist was because I want to give him a shout out. So, or maybe if anything, this might backfire. But let me get his name real quick. His name is Jason Gay. Jason Gay's headline in the Wall Street Journal was "Fashion Crisis in the Playoffs, Baseball Helmet Advertising." And essentially he said, money matters, so he understands ads, but good style is priceless, and he thinks it's ruining the game. Your thoughts, Chris?
So you said the same with Jason Gay, right?
Yeah, Jason Gay.
And the discussions about fashion and baseball.
Right.
Okay. I think I think fans do appreciate a very elite looking player, right? They like that slick looking player. My first question is, look, NASCAR is kind of gaudy because there's so many advertisements always in place. They even call the cars like, the DuPont 22. You know what I mean? Like they've just gone overboard with their advertisements. I think there could be a model of some sorts where there's like one area on a uniform. Maybe it's on the back or somewhere where what would be cool, even though they get paid a ton of money already, but maybe some of the players said they're only in the league for like 2 weeks. This would be really good for them. If there was like an advertisement area where they could put it where the players could get their own sponsorship, like that'd be pretty cool. But
that'd be fucking awesome. And if someone like us can create a business out of it where we sell real estate on, obviously they wouldn't be able to allow us to license that out, or have the ability, but you sell a piece of real estate in only one particular area of a player, that would be great.
Yeah, and I think you can make it to where, because I do get the ultimate point, which is we do like how the uniforms look, right, as fans. But what if it's only during regular season games and not during the big games, the playoffs, and all that?
That makes sense.
And obviously the uniforms sold, they don't have the advertisement. I think stay away from that area and let the fans have the non-advertisement uniforms. But I think there's a place for it. I think there's a smart way to do it. And maybe the logo designs have to be approved by the league to where they are. Maybe someone like Jason Gay could be in charge of approving something like this, these different designs.
I think he mentioned that the patch on the arm, I think he either said what would be a good idea, or maybe the idea he said already passed. But basically, there would be like a player that has a certain solid color uniform, and then they have this odd-looking, bright, multiple color logo that would ruin and throw it all off. And I think he was saying that. I think his idea was moving forward, they should make it where the logo has to go well with the uniform color and the design, essentially. They make it all more seamless of a thing. And that's what I love about baseball, because baseball is all about presentation of having style, and not only your appearance. And there's a reason why the Yankees, they can't have a beard, but that's just one thing. But like the way you perform when you're catching a ball or you're swinging, it's got to look seamless and like almost elegant. It's very, I don't know how to explain it, but my uncle told me that when I was young, that it's got to look like everything flows. It can't look like you're taking steps to do a play. It's got to be perfect and just seamless. So looks like you agree with this guy, Jason Gay.
You know what? I'd like to hear what Kurt's opinion on it is. Think about minor leaguers. They would love this.
Minor leaguers probably would love it. I mean, if they can get paid for it, that would be amazing. I don't think the players, though, in the MLB get paid for
That's the problem.
ads. Yeah.
That's the problem. When you look at the UFC for the longest time, their fighters were able to get their own sponsorships, and that's how they really made money, right? Because there was a 6-figure contract, but you have to pay your trainer, who also has to raise a family, right? So it was like hard times for a long time for a UFC fighter. And then the UFC did this huge Reebok deal. And then Reebok was the only brand that they could wear. And ultimately some of that money did get to them, but they couldn't get independent sponsors that they wanted and put them on their fighting shorts. Everything was now uniform. And so that's the thing. I think we all know the MLB is going, if they do go this direction, is going to be pocketing all the money. And at least in that case, they'll be able to control the branding and make sure that it's something that does look slick, like you just mentioned. I don't know if it'll be on a team ownership basis or a whole league basis. Maybe it's a Nike makes all the uniforms. That's going to be the brand.
Right. Well, just to play devil's advocate too, because a lot of these players get paid a ton, right?
Yeah.
They're already getting paid so much. The franchise is spending so much money, shelling out money. They deserve their money through the ads. So I think I like your idea where there's like a specific area of like real estate on the uniform where the player can basically choose what they want and get paid for it, and then everything else is kind of free game, but with limited abilities of where you could put it, right? For the when it comes to the actual team or the MLB making money.
Yeah.
So,
Look, these are rich people problems.
yeah. Well, I was just thinking, is there any way, Chris, we can get full count on a player, on a jersey? That'd be great, and then maybe we can get some more views. But I think what it's going to require is just you and I to argue more, and I think that's how we'll get more viewers.
Well, look, the players are the ones with the money, not us. So why don't we get a player to sponsor us?
Don't we have to sponsor them?
No, for a good example. So I was in. Look, and I don't want to make it seem like me and him are friends or we were ever anything more than an acquaintance. We were like in shop class together, and I definitely knew of him when I was in high school. We knew of each other, right?
Okay.
But I never hung out with him outside of school. I never it was just knew him in high school. That's it, right? And his name was Jay Bruce. He's pretty famous baseball player. He played at the Cincinnati Reds for a long time.
Oh, okay.
He could knock balls out of the park. I saw him whenever the Reds, I believe it was the Reds when he was with them, came to San Diego. So it was really cool seeing Jay Bruce on the screen. I'm pretty sure he hit a home run that night. Even though I'm a Padres fan, obviously I still rooted for him over the Padres at that moment because seeing somebody you were in high school with, whenever we were in shop class, he was a left-handed pitcher. He accidentally chopped off his finger in shop class. But anyways, that obviously didn't slow him down. Well, I saw him on LinkedIn because a lot of my classmates now follow him, right? And he's got his own duck call business, right? So, for example, in a scenario like that, having someone from the MLB that sees that we're real estate and baseball and puts their product with us to sponsor us, and we give him a shout out.
That'd be great. I think your full count moment is reaching out to him and seeing what he can do, or maybe he can just jump on. That'd be great.
No, the truth is that there's so many people from high school that hit him up, once he made it big, and
But do your classmates have a podcast? I bet most of them don't that are consistent.
yeah, but I'd be reaching out for him to ask for money, and I think that he's had that. You know what I mean? He's had people reach out. If I think a better scenario would be someone's made it, and then you meet the person they are today, right? And then you get them to invest. Or let's say me and him were friends for a long, we were actually more than acquaintances in high school, and I was there for him when he was in tough times, and then I bring this idea. I think from this position, I feel. Look, I'll give you another good story. All right, so there's another person that I know. His name's Tony, and I was a little bit closer with him. We were in high school together. We had been to sleepovers at our friend's house together. I was a little bit closer to him. However, I joined the Navy. We both went our separate ways, right? And one day I'm watching the World Series of Poker. I don't know why, but he is in the final semifinals. And I'm like, what? That's Tony. It's the craziest moment, the World Series of Poker, right? And so obviously I watched the rest of it, and I'm me and him were Facebook friends and everything.
Wow.
And
can you say
I'm
the
watching
last
them,
name or no?
I don't really want to say it because I feel I'll tell you why in a second. I would prefer the story to get back to you because the feeling it gave me. But if it does, it does, right? But I'll send it to you offline. So, anyways,
you didn't ever tell me this, so I think you should reach out to him. Not asking for money.
Let me finish telling the story.
Tell him to get on our podcast, dude. Okay, fine. Go ahead. Go on.
Let me finish telling the story. Okay. So I'm watching it and it might have been before the semifinals that I noticed this because I was watching it for a week, right?
Uh-huh.
And I'm watching him do good and I'm cheering him on from afar. And he ends up becoming he's in the final table against the last guy. And so he lost, but he still won $3 million, right? The whole the jackpot was 8 or 9. The final prize was 8 or 9, but he won $3 million. And after that, he's been doing traveling around the world, and he hasn't been blowing his money. He's been spending it smartly, I can tell on Facebook. But he's been, enjoying life. And another thing that he does is he's also on American Ninja Warrior. He's done that 2 or 3 times. Anyways, he's been big in the Vegas scene. Those 2 things are both Vegas things. And so when he won, I did message him on Facebook. It was something like, hey man, I was watching you. That was really good. It was like a message like that. I wasn't asking for anything. And then I saw that he read it and he didn't respond. And I felt like how many people like me are reaching out to him now that he won this millions of dollars. Like, where were we a year ago when he was maybe struggling, right? And now we're all hitting him up like, you're doing something big in your life. And he never said that to me, but that's definitely what happened. That's definitely people hitting him up out of the woodwork. Like, you're relevant to me now. You're relevant in my life now. And ever since that, I've been very cautious about things like that, about reaching out to someone. Even to say, like, good job, man, I care about you. Something like that. It's like, where was I? Right. And I guess the true answer is, I guess I didn't care about him until he was there. Well, and then it was really cool to see somebody I grew up with, right?
Right. But to not make you look so bad, even though I could, I'm just kidding. But in your case, in your defense, you went to the Navy, dude. So like, you had to like do your own thing. And when you go to the Navy, I'm sure you can't really stay in touch on Facebook all the time and keep up with your friends because you're on the ship doing God knows what you did. So I think you're fine. But I get why you're more reserved now and cautious of how you attempt to reach out to someone.
Well, I mean, look, the truth is that if it was the other way around, like I went to the Navy, did my own thing, and I would have had a scenario like that happen to me, and if he hit me up, it would have been the same thing. It's like, it's clear, yes, at one point in our life, we knew who we were, but we haven't really, to be blunt, given up about each other for a long time. So, it is what it is. I wasn't heartbreaking about it. The only thing I felt like is like, damn, I really wanted to know that I watched all that. I didn't tell him that, but I watched all that and I was like cheering him on. You know what I mean? That's the only thing I felt like. I'm not here to grab any money, but I feel like there probably were people hitting him up to grab some money. You know what I mean?
You know what would make this go full circle and like a good touching story is if he watches this, he sees it, he sees how honest you were, and he reaches out and says hello to you.
Well, that would be cool.
That would be great.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. What about you? Do you have anybody you went to high school with that they made it big and you're like, damn, I haven't talked to them in a long time, so it would be really weird if I hit them up right now?
No, not really. I don't think so. No.
My wife.
I mean, they were like they were like
that.
I'm sorry?
My wife and her job, she has that. She has people
I bet
that didn't really, give her the respect maybe she deserved until she got something they really wanted, and then came out the woodwork. You know what I mean?
That sucks. Yeah, that probably doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
But at least she made it, dude, and people are, looking up to her, which is great. But it
really sucks. I'm just talking about these are leeches, and that's kind of my biggest fear is like I don't ever want to be lumped in with leeches. That's why I would never hit up Jay Bruce. I don't want to be one of like you to associate me with a leech. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's like the framework of your mind that's telling you that. I think me being a salesperson and the way I think, there's a way to present yourself in a way where you reach out to him and he doesn't see you in that box. You kind of have to do something, think outside the box, be creative, reach out to him and frame it in a way that he doesn't feel that way. And maybe I can help you do that. And maybe we can do something like that. The best person that can help you with that, if you're even interested, because I think I'm a great salesperson, but I also think Sway, our co-host, is an excellent salesperson. To a degree, he might even be better than me, I think, at selling. And I think he would probably be the best person to ask how to, reach out to someone like that.
Anybody who's watching that's not in sales probably despises that comment. But everybody who's in sales loves it.
Yeah, anybody in sales gets what I mean, because as a salesperson, you also help people take that next step when they've always wanted to take that next step to buy that new car. Like, let's say they're ready for it. They have the means to the end to actually afford it and even more, but they never take that step. But someone's there to kind of be like, you deserve it, you need it, and they get it and they feel better and their life improves by exponentially, right? So that's kind of my point. Salespeople can find a void of what you always needed and helps you acquire that. The bad salespeople are the ones that try to exploit you and try and sell you things you don't need.
Well, look, you're in real estate, so I don't think you'll ever have that problem of having to exploit people. And I don't mean that as a joke. I'm serious.
Thank you. No, it's real estate for the most part. It's always going to be not always, actually. I shouldn't say that, but overall, it's going to be a good investment, especially in this particular area of town, Southern California. So yeah, I agree. All right, man. So
wait. Have you noticed people less wanting a buyer in their real estate sales since the summer of 2024 was not great for realtors, right? In the sense of, yeah. So have you noticed that there's there's more people saying, hey, I don't even need a buyer. I can do this on my own.
You mean you mean a buyer saying I don't even need an agent. I can do this on my own.
Yeah, a buyer saying I don't need an agent.
Yes, in outside of my sphere of clientele, I've heard that and I've seen that. I haven't really had a client tell me that because I feel that I do a good job of explaining what I do and show them what I do, that they see the value. But I'm sure I'm going to come across that at some point for sure, especially someone that I barely meet. But a lot of it's going to change for sure, probably. But the relationship, you kind of have, I think a buyer kind of pays the buyer's agent too, besides everything else I could talk about, but kind of getting that ability to utilize that agent's relationships with a ton of other agents that have stuff on the market that may not.
But at the same time, you probably wouldn't notice because the people who make that decision aren't coming to you, right?
Yes. However, one thing that separates myself from like a car salesman is car salesmen wait for a client to come to them. I'm sure they also go hunting, but I'm hunting every day. So I'm always looking for buyers, sellers. I talk to people that don't even want to buy or sell, but I still go out my way to talk to them. So I have to go hunt versus, anyone come to me. Yeah.
Understood. Okay. Well, it sounds like you got somewhere to be.
Got to get back to work, real estate work. And by the way, I'm going to Game 4 of the Padres because I definitely want to experience that at Petco Park. And
that's in LA, right? Oh, it's in Petco. For some reason, I was looking up tickets and
it's in LA weird. First. So we'll see. Hopefully your team wins. If that's still the team you're going for.
I think Game 1 was a nightmare.